What makes a standout conference speaking proposal and presentation? That's what we're going to find out with my guest, Cathy McPhillips, on this episode of the Speaking Your Brand podcast. More and more women are making an impact by starting businesses, running for office, and speaking up for what matters. With my background as a TV political analyst, entrepreneur, and speaker, I interview and coach purpose-driven women to shape their brands, grow their companies, and become recognized as influencers in their field. This is Speaking Your Brand, your place to learn how to persuasively communicate your message to your audience. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Speaking Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Carol Cox. Today, we're going to talk about how to create a speaking submission for a conference or event that stands out so that you get selected by the conference organizers. One of the things that I missed the most in the first couple of years of the pandemic was actually attending conferences. I love the buzz and the energy of being around lots of different people from different places, meeting new people, figuring out what they're working on, whether it's in business or marketing or technology. And so I was really excited to attend MAICON, the Marketing AI conference, which was held in July of 2023. And I also had the opportunity to speak there. And I've talked about this on the podcast last year as well. And I'll make sure to include links to those episodes in the show notes. Today, I have joining us Cathy McPhillips, who is the Chief Growth Officer at the Marketing AI Institute. That's the organization that puts on MAICON, the Marketing AI conference. And she has a background as the Content Marketing Institute, helping to put on Content Marketing World, which is a huge conference. And she also has have a background in advertising with different agencies in Cleveland, Ohio, where she lives. Cathy, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Carol. I'm so excited this date finally has arrived.
Yes. Well, I was really excited. It was about a year ago, last February, when I got an email saying that I had been selected to speak at MAICON. I had submitted my speaker submission, just like so many of us do, and I know so many of you listeners do. And so it's always nice to be picked. We always like it. Feels good, and especially it feels good to be able to speak at a conference that I was excited to attend. Obviously, AI has basically exploded onto the world in the past 15 months, and you all at the Marketing AI Institute, I know I've been working on marketing and AI for years. So this was like your opportunity to shine and to attract so many people to the work that you all do. So Cathy, can you fill us in a little bit more on your background and what brought you to the Marketing AI Institute?
Certainly. Well, like you said, I started at two agencies in Cleveland, Ohio. One, I was working in the studio and in production, and the other, I worked in media planning, which is what I wanted to do. My first agency, I needed a job, and there was an opening there, and I was like, okay, I'll do it. But it turns out that I loved it. It was such a great experience because it helped me learn about every aspect of the agency. So when I switched into media, which is what I wanted to do, I just really appreciated what the other departments did. So it was a nice opportunity to kind of learn more about an agency. And then I did my own thing for about 10 years. And then I started working with Joe Polizzi and the Content Marketing Institute. And through Joe, I met Paul Reitzer, who's the CEO of the Marketing AI Institute. And it's been about 3 years. It'll be 3 years in May that I've been with Paul and the team. So it's been great. It's been exciting and fun and kind of what are we doing? And just so exciting. So I'm really excited. This will be my fourth MAICON with the team, and then our fifth one overall.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so then you obviously do a lot online. You have the podcast, you have different courses that you offer through your website. And I'll make sure to include a link to the website in the show notes as well. So why did you all decide to do an in-person conference? And had you done this before the start of the pandemic, or was the first one kind of as we were coming out of the pandemic?
So like I said, this will be the fifth one. The first one was in 2019. So it was the summer before 2020. And in 2020, obviously the event got canceled. I was not working with the company in 2019 for the live event. I came as a paid attendee. I came with Joe Polizzi actually. And he and I went there and we're like, okay, this is, obviously we're friends of Paul. We like Paul. We want to see what he's talking about. And we really went to support him. And I left like, oh my gosh, there are so many applications and things I'm working on. But then when I went back to work and it was just like things just kind of got busy and it just wasn't so tangible yet. And then 2020 didn't happen. 2021 was virtual, which was great to get back together, but it still wasn't the same. Even 2022 wasn't quite the same. But then 2023, oh my gosh, it was just the absolute best. And like you said, you don't realize how much you miss seeing people. And like, I don't know if you know Tim Hayden, but he got to MAICON 2023 and he walked in and I was almost like, I think I'm going to start crying right now. It was just so nice to see our friends and see people together. So this will be our 5th one this summer or this fall. We're going to September this year.
Yeah, that's exciting. And it's in Cleveland, Ohio, which I know is where you live. And I know and Paul and Mike and a bunch of you all live there. All right. So let's talk about then, MAICON, marketing AI. So obviously that's the main kind of gist of it, is around marketing and AI applications in marketing. So how do you all select speakers for MAICON? What are you looking for? I know you have your main stage speakers as well as the breakout session speakers. So we can talk about both of those different buckets.
Sure. From the main stage, that really is very highly curated by Paul. It's people that he's meeting through some conversations. It's people that he's following online. He's got a very, very highly curated list of folks he follows every week to get his AI news for the podcast. And if a new name pops up or even an old name pops up, he's like, oh my gosh, they've got a really great story to tell. I would love to have them at the event. So Paul and Tracy really do most of the programming for MAICON. I like to interject some ideas when I can, or if I talk to someone, I'm like, this would be a great speaker. So I do collaborate a little bit with them, but those two really focus on most of the programming. When it comes to breakouts, I feel like that's the biggest opportunity for so many of us from the, director level, practitioner level, whatever the case may be, where we have stories to tell. I'm on our team. Mike and I probably are the two using AI the most on a lot of the things that we're doing. So me being able to say, here was my problem. Here's the tool that I found to help me. Here was my process. Here's my outcome. Like, that's a really powerful story to tell. And so I'd like to think, like, if I was an attendee in the room, what would I want to get out of this? Like, I want to give them something tangible, something meaty, like a real good case study so they can either go back and do it themselves, go back and get buy-in from their management, just giving them something really useful. And I think that's what we're looking for the most when it comes to breakout sessions, is especially since last November 30th, when ChatGPT came out, it was like, or I guess that was 2022. But since that happened, there are so many more stories now that people have, from generative AI up to AI and data, AI and analytics, AI and so many other things, that there are just so many good stories now. And that's really what attendees, the main stage is wonderful, obviously, but it's the breakouts that get a lot of folks, that give them the reason, their managers want to say, what are you going to get from this event? That's great to go see people in a network, but I want you to bring back something tangible. And the breakout sessions are those tangible sessions that most people, attendees, need to prove that the event was worth their investment.
So then when you're looking at the speaker submissions, what stands out to you as far as like, yes, this speaker looks like definitely we're going to look at them further, to make a decision, versus some submissions that come through and is clearly, no, it's not a good fit?
I think one, just taking a little bit of time on it, and don't just, don't breeze through it. Like, really invest time, look at the event, look to see if there's a theme, look to see who their audience is, really, really read the speaker submission guidelines to make sure that you're adhering to everything that they're asking for, and customizing it to the event. You might have the same presentation you're doing many times, which is great. We do that too, but we make sure that everything that we're doing is really customized to the audience, and that we truly can show that we understand the people in the room and what message they need to hear from us. So it's important to really customize your abstract. I think it's also really important when they say to include a video, that you really do. And if you're someone that doesn't have video, I've been on stage dozens of times and I don't know if I have access to any of the recordings. Mm-hmm. But so either call the event that you spoke at and said, can you send me a few minute clip of my session? Or they may send you the whole thing and they might just say, just don't publish it anywhere, but you can share it with somebody. Mm-hmm. Or get your phone out and just record yourself. Just have a conversation. They just want to see you. They want to see your emotion. They want to see your personality. They want to see if you can talk, how you're talking. So that's really helpful to make sure that you include something like that, even if it's very, very rough. They know that what you in your kitchen with your phone is not the same as you on a stage. They just want to see you. They want to see just how you shine. So I think that's really important. I think, being able to show that you are an expert in whatever it is that you're talking about. And I'm giving advice that I have been told before. I always say, like, I don't know if I really have a story to share. Everyone else is doing the same things I'm doing. And what difference is my presentation versus somebody else's? And I like to say that, no one has the unique experience that you do. So if you are going into a room and you are talking about a specific use case, a specific example of you doing something, no one else has that experience. So you might think, oh, it's so simple, but there might be someone in the room who can leave there just so inspired and so educated based on the information that you told them. And I think that's really powerful. So don't shortchange ourselves on our expertise and our knowledge, because people don't have that same knowledge that we have for our product, for our service, for the marketing that we're doing.
Yes, I completely agree, Cathy. Thank you for sharing that. And back to your point about customizing the speaker submission for that particular conference. And that's one thing that we work with our clients on, and we tell podcast listeners all the time. Like you said, like, go to the website, see who the audience is for that particular event and what the organization is saying about the speaker submissions. Because I know, so for example, for MAICON, you very specifically say that the event largely caters to non-technical audiences. So in other words, if you're going to be doing a submission, it's probably not going to be on kind of like the nuts and bolts of how to use an LLM API to build your next application. Like, that's a great topic for other conferences, but probably not the one that's in line with your audiences, who tend to be, marketers, people actually using tools like ChatGPT. They're not the ones building applications on top of ChatGPT.
Yeah, but it might be someone who is a CMO in an organization who is looking at, okay, we're in a regulated industry and we are trying to build our own LLM because of our privacy restrictions and things like that. So, or actually any company could do that. It doesn't need to be healthcare or anything regulated, but we just want to protect our own data. And here's how we did that. So maybe that is a really good story to tell. If marketers and business leaders can understand it, and I think that's the difference. I think what your point was is our audience is marketers and business leaders, not data scientists. So if you have a story that a marketer or business leader really could understand, then yes, please apply, and ask questions, maybe send in a few different submissions. So because maybe one isn't, just because sometimes if someone says no, that this isn't a good fit for us, it doesn't mean that you aren't a good fit. It means that maybe that is already filled in the agenda. But if you send in a few things, maybe they can say, oh, this actually would fit. This person would be great, but we need them over here instead.
And when you're thinking about the speaker submissions, like you mentioned about case studies and use cases and what that particular speaker is doing at their company or at their organization, are you looking for certain sizes of organizations or companies that people work for? Are you looking for a mix of people who are, companies are actually building things themselves, or more speakers at companies who are using the tools?
I would say we'd lean more toward people that are using the tools, less on agencies and less on tech companies. But again, if there are stories to share, if a marketer at a tech company has a story to share about their using their technology or another technology, we're not going to exclude someone just because of the company they work for. It really just depends on what message they have to share. And agencies, unfortunately, there are just always some bad eggs at any event where they get on stage and they just promote. And that just kind of makes us a little bit guarded on bringing in other companies and, similar, like I said, tech companies or agencies. But gosh, if there's an agency with a great story to tell, especially if they bring a client with them, that's wonderful.
So then, okay, so imagine that we have our speaker submissions, right? We do a great job on that. It's targeted towards that particular conference and it appeals and we get selected. So now, what have you found has been helpful for you all on your end as the event organizers, as you're getting closer to the actual conference date, as far as things that are helpful for speakers to be doing for you all?
Oh, it's always really nice when speakers just share that they're speaking at the event. They have a network that, we might have some overlap in who you're following and, or, who's following you and who is following us. But it's always great to have someone say, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that event existed. Thank you, Carol, for telling me about it. So that's always a wonderful thing. Learning more about the audience, jumping into the app when the app is live to engage with attendees. And I think from an attendee standpoint, it's always great when there are speakers who hang out for 15 minutes after their session is over just to take those questions, to stay at the event for a little while, to meet attendees, to even come in a little bit early to meet with attendees before your session, because there might be a little story you pick up in a conversation the night before that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to weave this into my session. So really engaging with the audience and not just popping in, doing your session and hitting the road. It really is nice to have people stick around.
I agree. If I'm speaking somewhere, I like to be there for the entire event because I like to get kind of the vibe of, what are the other speakers? What have they been talking about? How has the audience been resonating with certain topics or certain things that have been brought up? So I remember my session that I did last year was about brand voice and maintaining brand voice using AI tools like ChatGPT and how to do that. And at the beginning, I had these really fun paddles that had either human or robot. And so I had the audience, lift the paddle. Who do you think is going to be, running the show either 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? And what I said, and this was not planned, totally impromptu at the very beginning, was okay, based on everything you've been hearing at the conference so far, all these sessions, whether it's about the future or about IP or, all these different things, how would you answer? So because I had been there for the past day and a half, I was able to talk to the audience about that. And to your point about staying afterwards, so I think I was on the second day. So then the morning of the third day, as we were having the morning sessions and wrapping up before everyone left at lunch, I was standing in line to get food. And I had a couple of people kind of find me and say, Carol, really enjoyed your session yesterday. Thank you so much. Can I follow up with you? And if I hadn't stuck around, right, I never would have had a chance to meet some of those people who had been in the audience who, you can't meet 100 people after your session, but they'll find you during other times of the conference.
Absolutely. It's such a nice community. It's such a nice group of people. And you never know, you might get a speaking opportunity out of sticking around.
Right. Yes, exactly. All right. So then let's talk about actual, the speakers presenting their talks. What makes a great speaker at your events? What have you found based on the feedback that you get from attendees that they really like about speakers that they've been sitting in their sessions?
I guess I just think part of that is like, one, they know who's in the room, that they're really speaking the language of the people at the event in the room who are trying to learn from them. Two, being engaging, making eye contact, doing all the right things as a speaker, speaking slow, not reading off your slides, making it engaging, having a starting point and having like, here's the outcomes and here's what I did, here are the steps I took, here are the outcomes. I think having something that they can just say, okay, taking the whole 45-minute session or however long the session is and saying, okay, here's what you need to take away from this. I think that's just really helpful to have just a flow to really, especially to the breakout sessions. And I love when there's engagement, if there's a poll that goes up or if you're taking questions in the middle of your session, and it's really up to the speaker, whatever is easiest for you. But I love the engaging ones. Those always seem to resonate a lot.
And then Cathy, since you do quite a bit of speaking yourself, what are some things that you have done during your speaking engagements that you have found have worked really well?
Well, I always start with a pretty good story. I just did a presentation a few months ago at an alumni event for many Ohio universities in Ohio, all of their alumni directors. And I started with a story about me and a story about me with an alum and how this alum helped me get through college. And it was like, it just kind of set the stage, kind of set the stage as me as a human. I'm coming here to tell you a story about why I'm here and what this impact of this person's role, who I was speaking to, all these alumni directors, how that person at my university changed my life and how important it is what they were doing. So just kind of was like just a real good, and it sounds, a little bit cheesy. My daughter's like, that's really cheesy. I'm like, it is cheesy, but it's genuine. And it just made them feel like, okay, she values what we're doing. She's trying to, relate to us. And then I often say sometimes, like, I can talk to you about what I know. I am not trying to pretend to be an alumni director at a university. I'm just trying to tell you, me as me, here's some of my experiences. Maybe you can find a nugget or two for you to take home and work on this yourself. Use some AI tools in your own work.
And anything else from your speaking engagements? Do you kind of tend to use the same couple of different presentations, and then how much, how do you decide to customize them based for that particular event?
Well, with AI, I feel like every time I do a presentation, I'm changing
That's
a
true.
handful of slides because things are moving so quickly. I actually just one of the biggest things to talk about is our podcast production. And I went through it. I was doing a presentation yesterday and I was like, oh my gosh, we just rebranded our podcast. So I had to go through and change all of my, like half of my slides because it had the old logo on it, which was easy. But I always make sure, like I said, I know who the audience is. I customize it. I update it based on any new technology that I'm using. I'm trying to think what else I change, but I never use the same one twice. It's always changed in some way. Even the one with the alumni directors, I was using some tools I don't normally talk about because I wanted to apply it to their role. But the biggest story I have is our podcast, and that's what I know the best. So I want to make sure to include that. And I always start and say, you may not have a podcast, but a lot of things I'm talking about, just think of my podcast, think of your biggest piece of content, and how can you relate that to these steps and these tools that I'm using for your own work.
Well, since I have you here, let's talk about what you're doing with the podcast because I want to talk about some of the AI tools that you have
Yeah.
found to be really useful. Since obviously you are the Marketing AI Institute, and so tell me a little bit about how has your podcast process changed, in the past year, and what are you finding really helpful now as far as tools?
Well, gosh, when I first started working on the podcast, I asked Paul, I said, who produces the podcast? And we were using someone at the time to do it for us. But then at that time, and the reason we liked that person was because they just handled it. Except then when we got to the point where we were doing a news format, we didn't have 48 hours for the podcast to have someone else produce the podcast. So Paul's like, can you do it? And I was like, I don't know, I can try. So we started using these AI tools and we're doing it. It's been great. So we're using Descript to edit our videos, edit our audio, create short form videos from that for YouTube Shorts, Instagram Stories, and TikTok, which has been the best thing in the world. There's so many AI tools in there within Descript, from editing through cutting the transcription to adjusting your the sound through Studio Sound to overdubbing voices. And we've had to fix a few things with AI Paul, AI Mike, and AI Cathy on some things, which has been remarkable. And there are some other things we've been using in there. And then we also use Writer or Jasper to help us with some of our blog posts. We use ChatGPT, Perplexity, Anthropic for Agorapulse for some of our social. We use Opus Clip for some short form videos because it makes it the portrait versus horizontal. So we can use that on, like I said, YouTube Shorts and things like that. And I know I'm missing some. Grammarly to help us with our blog posts, Canva to help us with some of our images. So there's AI all in every single step of our process.
That's a lot of tools. I mean, it's good, but it's a lot of different things. I'm sure you were excited about the potentiality of AI agents to basically like take the workflow and go through and then the AI agents just do all of those different steps at some point.
But it is amazing that I estimated, so we save about 15 hours a week by using the tools that we're using. So that's 60 hours a month, and we're spending less than $100 a month on the tools collectively
Wow, that's amazing. 15 hours a week.
a week.
That's significant. Is that mostly like where do you find that those savings are coming from?
I think mostly in the transcription.
Hmm.
We want to have captions on things just to be accessible, and it is good for SEO on our on our show notes blog post, and then in the blog post writing. Blog posts take a long time to write. So if we can take Mike and Paul's content from the podcast transcript and put it into some of these tools that help us write the blog posts, I feel like that's a really good use of using AI to help you write posts, because we are taking their words and having it put in. It's not like we're asking it to generate a post for us. We're taking their words and having it repurpose for us. So I think that's a little bit different. So, everything we're doing, Mike goes in and gives everything a hard edit because sometimes it's not right. Sometimes it's not the flow that he was looking for. But those are probably the two biggest areas. And the things like the sound, I don't know, before Studio Sound, before that feature was enabled, we weren't using it and it sounded fine. But then you realize when you use that feature, you're like, oh my gosh, it sounds so much better. So there are some things we didn't even know that we needed until we found them.
Cathy, what are you most excited about regarding AI? And let's talk about maybe this year, 2024. Like what, and then and most excited about? Let's even look like, say, 3 to 5 years out. Like, what would your vision be for what AI could do for us?
I think the thing that we talk about that we're excited about the most is just the chance to get a little bit of our time back and not always having to replace that time with more work, but maybe being able just to step away a little bit more, clear our heads more, refresh, energized. We can get back to doing what we're doing the next day. But I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities. Paul talks a lot about generative AI being great, but there are so many other ways AI can help us, especially in the data and analytics space. I have to admit, as much as I love data, I am not an expert at it. And just to have some of these tools help me synthesize some of this data, pull it into a format that so I can analyze it better and be smarter, using our database better, things like that. That, like, how can we better reach our customers through the use of AI, which sounds counterintuitive, but that actually can help us be more personalized, be more human, if the AI can help us in some of those areas.
Yeah, one thing that I did is I downloaded all of my podcast stats from Libsyn into a CSV file, and I uploaded it into ChatGPT and had it analyze it. So basically look at, based on the number of downloads and, how in like the first 30 days of downloads or different criteria, which topics tend to get the most listens, because I have 370 plus episodes. Actually, this month is the 7-year anniversary of the podcast. So there's a lot of content. Now, of course, I kind of know intuitively which topics get the most feedback or the most listeners, but I wanted, it to like look at the hard data and tell me. And it was actually surprising some of the things that I found. And what was interesting was that some of it is topic based, but a lot of it happened to be on that. I knew it was the guest that drove a lot of the downloads. The topic was secondary, but I'm like, oh, but I need to find more guests like that, or had that guest back on, because obviously that drove a lot of listens.
That's really interesting. I mean, it's like you said, you know intuitively some of those things, but then you're like, oh, that's actually surprised me. Or something will surface that you don't even realize. Like, we have so much data nowadays. Like, let's use these tools to help us. Because I remember the days when I was, early in my career, when it was like, we just need more data. And now it's like, we don't need any more data. We just need to be able to dissect it better and understand it better.
Exactly. All right. So, again, Cathy, let us know what is going on with the Marketing AI Institute. What are some different ways that listeners can learn more and to get involved with what you're doing?
Oh my gosh, there's so much going on. It's been a crazy start to the year. So we relaunched our 2024 AI Academy for Marketers classes. We've got a great intro class, which is free. Paul and I do that every few weeks. You can find that on our website. And within Academy, we have Piloting AI, which is an 8-hour course on just how to get started with AI, how to pilot your first program, how to figure out where to start. Scaling AI would be the next step for directors and above, or anybody. Anybody could take it for sure. About building an AI council, building generative AI policies, building an AI roadmap, being that change agent within your organization, the governance and things like that, that really you're working on piloting and now like, okay, let's see this come to fruition. Let's see this through. How do you do that? And then our AI mastery membership. So the scaling AI is also pre-recorded. They both just recorded it within the past few weeks. And then the AI mastery membership, I'm super excited about. It's once a month access, live access to our team, mostly Paul, and then Mike, and then a little bit of me and our other team members, where there's an Ask Me Anything once a month or once a quarter. There is a trends briefing once a quarter. And then there is some demos. And it's just our team demoing tech, no sales pitches. The tech companies may not even know we're doing it. We're just going to go through and say, here was a use case that we had. Here's a tool we used. We want to show you how we used it within this platform and doing some live demos. So I'm really excited about that. MAICON coming up. And we've got a bunch of virtual summits. We just had our AI Writer Summit in early March. Our AI for B2B Summit is in June. And our AI for agencies is TBD. So we're just trying, our mission is really just to make AI approachable and accessible to marketers and business leaders and AI literacy. So we just keep doing these new things. So it's been fun.
Yes, lots of events, and I'm always very have a lot of admiration for people who put on a lot of events, because it is not my thing. I'm very detailed and organized, but I don't know, event production and planning, it's a whole different thing.
It's a lot, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun just seeing attendees and seeing them, like when you just see that something spark in them.
It is. Well, Cathy, thank you so much for coming on the Speaking Your Brand podcast. And I really appreciate everything that you all do at the Marketing AI Institute. I've learned a lot by listening to you all over the past year plus, and I will continue to do so. And for those of you listening, make sure to connect with Cathy on LinkedIn. I'll include a link to her profile in the show notes, as well as to the Marketing AI Institute website and to their fantastic podcast. Thank you, Cathy, so much for joining us.
And thank you. And one last thing, if you don't mind me saying
Yeah.
so. So our MAICON call for speakers did close for this year, but events are always looking for good people to speak. We have our virtual events, we've got our blog, we've got all these different things. So please, and we may have someone drop out of the event as we get closer. You just never know what might happen. So always apply to speak. And if you didn't get included last year, then try again this year, because it may not have been for any other reason than that they were full. So keep trying.
Exactly. Yes, keep trying, because you never know, just that they already had someone for that topic, or they were full, or just for some reason your submission just got overlooked. It doesn't mean necessarily that you are not a great speaker or your topic is not great. Just keep applying, because there are conferences and events out there who need great speakers. And I know for those of you listening that that's who you are.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much, Cathy, again. And until next time, thanks for listening.
Thank you.